Nothing inspires me more than flowers. I'm setting up a party this weekend, but that's not the point. The point is these. I discovered this really cool thing to do with roses. So have you ever reflexed a rose? I actually think this is the easiest rose you could paint. There's less overlap, less folds, less to figure out. Now, if you want to see the professional florists do it, just search how to reflex a rose here on YouTube. So grab a rose. It can be anything, like your grocery store rose. And honestly, if the rose is a little bit past its prime, it makes this part of the process easier. Very gently fold those outermost petals out and down, and do it slowly or you'll actually create creases in those petals. You can see in a couple spots where I have creases. And if those outermost petals are looking a little less than desirable, just pull them off and bend and fold down the next layer. Right, 3 steps to get her done. Number 1, wash and dry. Number 2, minimal shadows. Number 3, finish up with linear details. I am going to sketch first. So a big old circle on the iPad and then a few what I would call like elephant ears surrounding the circle. And then start to interrupt those ear shapes with a little bit of points and wiggles and flourishes. And then redefine the center as well with an oval going both ways. So almost like an oval cross. Yeah, I guess that's as good as any of a way to describe it. So friends, we're going to do this for real on the watercolor paper here. I am using my favorite Academy cold press, which has got a little bit of a texture to it. And again, just starting with a big circle in the middle and going around and around. And you kind of see how I draw. I don't often lift my pencil off the paper. I just love that kind of swirly, continuous thing that happens when you purposely don't lift your pencil off the page as much. And you can see here how I'm creating the center of the rose by going around and around, but using kind of jerky movements. As I get closer to the center, my petals or my elephant ears are much skinnier. Starting with a 1/2 inch dagger or any broad bristled brush. Starting with a wet on dry wash and then let that dry. Creamy yellow, using the point of my brush facing down, I added a little bit of a purple. Now this palette that I'm using is very muted, very earthy colors. And I'm just spreading those earthy yellow, purple, and now a little bit of like a cream or a buff out over the entire shape of the sketch. Friends, use the palette you have. Your colors might be brighter. I'm keeping it pretty light. I did add in a little bit of a darker purple and a little bit of an orange too, but I'm washing that out with a clean brush and just spreading it over the entire shape. Am I looking back at my subject matter, my rose? Sure, but am I getting super precious about exactly where to put these colors and darker tones? No. So you'll see I am layering on a second layer of color. It's a little bit more intense, going in with some yellows here and there. Everything is still damp, so I'm getting that soft diffusion. Give yourself permission to go back in and sketch in more things that you may have forgotten, like me and my leaves. And if you happen to bump into the wet watercolor with your pencil, so be it. Check the lesson below where I talk all about a technique that actually does that on purpose. Yep, pencil into wet watercolor is magic. Friends, we're still in the wash and dry phase, so you're basically just coloring in your sketch and it's good fun. Few greens here. I got a little heavy-handed with that one green because wow, it was pigmented, but you know the drill. Lay down a little color, get a clean brush, spread that color around with the clean water on the brush. I added a little purple because purple and green, why not? Feeling some creative mojo here, friends. It's time to give this video a boop. That's a like, and it means you're having so much fun and you want others to know about it too. Moving on to a number 2 round brush. That's my happy painting brush, but use what you have, friends. And at this point, I've let everything dry, so we're in the minimal shadows portion of this tutorial. After everything's dry, we can go in with this brush and selectively add some darker shadows. And what I do is add a little bit of a darker tone to one edge of a shape and then take some clean water and blend it out. And I just repeat that again and again. Sometimes I use strokes that look a little bit like shapely marks or lines that suggest some volume like I did just there. But the same idea applies. Add the darker tone and then blend it out with some clean water. What am I using for the darker tone? A little bit of that creamy yellow from earlier before, and that soft purple. And that's just creating a muddier, darker, shadowy yellow. When you paint from life, your goal doesn't always have to be realism. This flower and the reflexing of the rose was really just a springboard for an idea of what to paint next. It's very obvious that my rose isn't realistic. Sure, it looks like a rose somewhere. Does it look like the one that I reflexed earlier? Not so much. I just enjoy the process of becoming inspired, having a gorgeous flower next to me while I'm painting, and cherry picking the details from that live flower that I love. And maybe even exaggerating some of the details that I love, like the ruffly edges of a petal that's slightly torn. Heading into that last phase, friends, with my beloved liner brush, this is the linear detail portion of the tutorial. It's my favorite. And yes, I definitely have things more dry now, and I'm just using that darker yellow and purple, and adding some curved dimensional linear details that are really giving things a little oomph, a little zest, a little zing, and also some volume. It's these lines that finally give these rose petals a sense of curving and overlapping, and yeah, you get it. Now, friends, listen, there is a lot of detail that I'm just letting go. I'm not adding. And sometimes, often actually, it's the details that we omit that have the most power in our paintings. Going into the leaves now, bringing out all the brushes, friends, and adding some final details in some darker greens, mixing in some indigo, bringing back that creamy yellow on top of the dark green that had dried earlier, and oh my goodness, yeah. I'm linking a few videos below to kind of reiterate these techniques with the liner brush and filler leaves and all the good stuff. All right, friends, let's head into comments because I want to know what your favorite part of this rose is. For me, it's that little ruffle at the bottom right-hand corner that just pops. Love it. The beautiful part of a flower like this, it's good just like this. I could call this done. Or I could come back later on with fresh eyes and keep going. Next, I want you to paint a rose without sketching first, and so I put together a playlist with all the rose tutorials. Happy painting, friends.